Life is a cocoon of existence moulded around a figure of flesh, tendons and muscle, propelling us forward in our daily lives. No one knows when our flame will be extinguished, though this element of our being hovers over us always, beckoning us toward the great unknown. What happens when you are told that you don't have much time left? That your matter will dissipate to the ethos in a week, a month, perhaps a year at most, but no one can give you an exact date. Would you spend your remaining days lamenting the things that you hadn't done, regretting the choices that you have made in the past? Or would you live your life to the fullest, knowing that this is the only one that will be uniquely yours? Today's game, Shadow Hearts Covenant, also known as Shadow Hearts 2, explores these themes. Published by Aruze in Japan and Midway Games in the West, and produced by Nautilus, the game hit the Sony PlayStation 2 worldwide between 2004 and 2005. A JRPG that continues the story of our anti-hero harmonizer Yuri Hyuga, Covenant explores themes of grief and loss, and how people may deal with the knowledge that their time is about up. Set in a world not so far removed from our own, the game takes us on a journey across Europe and Japan during the rising escalations of World War I in 1915. We begin the game not as Yuri, but as a German lieutenant named Karen, who has been sent to the village of Domremy in regional France, an almost nondescript location, but nonetheless important for the strategic advance of the German National Army. Whilst the village itself is easily captured, stakes stacked with helmets of deceased German infantry surround the local church, inciting discontent amongst the soldiers and a need for further investigation. Upon entering the holy grounds, the church is discovered to be empty, no one stirring within, leaving Karen to wonder how the feat outside was achieved, being that the residents of Domremy are all civilians. Is an important resistance figure hiding out here to give the villagers aid? Before she can ponder this for too long, gunshots and screams ring out beyond the sacred walls. After a moment of eerie silence, the stained glass window above her shatters as the demon enters the nave, landing behind her. It proceeds to slaughter all her men single-handedly, leaving her as the sole witness to the event. Permitted to leave only because it rescues her from the explosion of a stray grenade, for some reason, she reports back to her commanding officer, who demands that she return and sort out the disturbance, teaming her up with the Cardinal from the Vatican. Before they return to Domremy, the religious figure insists that they first make a stop at a Poina Tower in the Vatican, where ancient relics are stored for protection. The Cardinal, Nikolai, tells Karen that an item known as the Holy Mistletoe will be able to subjugate the demon of Domremy and calm its rage by placing a fatal curse upon its soul. Retrieving the artifact, the two return to the village and confront the demon once more, who we learn was Yuri all along. As things take a turn for the worse when a hostage is brought into the fray, Yuri shields Karen again from Nikolai's strike, which causes him to be impaled by the mistletoe. The German lieutenant and our harmonizer are rescued by a wolf and an old man soon after, who we later learn is a guardian beast of the village, and Alice's uncle Geppetto. Together the four decide to head to Paris, where they can start to piece together what happened and what to do next. Despite the game taking a morose turn early on and being about the pursuit of a cure for Yuri's curse, the overall theme of the game is lighter than that of the previous titles. Gone are the Lovecraftian nightmares of Kudelka and the original Shadow Hearts, the pregnant nuns with human heads emerging from the hem of their robes, and those weird creatures with long phallic appendages that just love to slap your face into existential dread. Instead, Covenant trades horror for camp, oversized spiders, creepy dolls, and enemies that look more like Halloween party rejects than true abominations. It's still entertaining, but instead of recoiling in dread, I found myself sighing, "Oh, not another monster." The edge that made the series so distinctive is dulled here. As though the butcher's knife has taken the lives of too many people, its blade tired and worn from all the flesh and sinew that it has already severed. As Yuri had parted ways with his companions from the previous title, he must rely on a new cast of characters to assist him. Lucky for him, even during the First World War there are no shortage of kind souls that will come to his aid. From Geppetto the French puppeteer and Alice's uncle, who provides sage advice and guidance to the party while swinging around a marionette in the likeness of his deceased daughter, to the wrestling vampire gallivanting across the world, avoiding his family responsibilities, there is guaranteed to be a favourite character for every player. I will say though, that despite me enjoying the cast members individually, they didn't seem to fit together cohesively. I felt more like I was travelling with a band of circus performers than would-be heroes half the time, and outside of the arcs in which you recruit them, most of the characters sadly do not interact directly with each other. I'd have liked to have seen a little more of, maybe Lucia and Anastasia bonding, for example. Oh, and you have to love the opening blurb that states, "This story is a work of fiction. All of the places and characters are fictitious. The story has no relation to any existing countries, organisations, or persons, living or dead." I could have sworn that I recall from history lessons that there was a young Russian girl by the name of Anastasia who is rumoured to have escaped the slaughter of the Romanov dynasty. Intriguing. Typically, this type of disclaimer is used when a setting is placed in the real world where likenesses may be drawn, but can easily be dismissed as non-conclusive. You can't really defend that they didn't use the likeness of Princess Anastasia, or Rasputin, or Roger Bacon for that matter. It doesn't really bother me too much, and I'm hardly going to be a Karen with an eye that calls up the local broadcasting network to complain, but maybe don't put a disclaimer and then blatantly take from history even if it's fictionalized. Or at least, own that you've done it. I guess I just find it amusing that Nautilus thought they could slap a disclaimer on the start of the game excusing their use of historical figures and facts, and absolve themselves of any accountability through some text they may have seen other developers use. I guess essentially this also epitomizes the playful nature of the developers, and grants a glimpse into what to expect of the narrative and its characters, cementing my earlier comment that the game takes a lighter tone. On a playful note from me, whilst most of the characters are narrative-centric, the game could have done without Lucia. While she has interesting battle skills and can throw together aromatherapy combos like a babe, she has no major importance to the plot and could have easily been consumed by the giant purple pussy. Seriously, no one would have been any the wiser. Oh my. As I mentioned before, Covenant takes the player on a journey across a reflection of our world during World War I, travelling through Europe and Japan initially to find a cure for Yuri, and then later in pursuit of Sapiantes Gladio, a secret society that has been orchestrating the murders of powerful influencers and political figures in a bid to gain power. I enjoy that some of the locations reflected the harshness of war, such as the stained glass windows of Notre Dame having been removed to protect them from firebombing, which accurately depicts a historical fact. Meanwhile, in Petrograd, Russia, the people are feeling the effects of the long, drawn-out war and are moving toward revolution, which can be observed through the whispers in the streets. Exploring the areas, depicted in fully realised 3D, was always a treat, though sometimes Yuri, and more commonly Kurando, would get caught on the edge of assets. Kurando, maybe it's time to consider taking in your pants a bit, or, like with your Ultimate Fusion, take them off completely? Whilst exploring, you can find treasure chests out in the open, or sometimes stumble upon random items scattered around, indicated by a question mark that appears above the active character's head. It pays to scour every location, as many of the treasures that can be discovered are quite valuable and useful for prolonging the life of your characters both in and out of battle. Oh, you thought this was a game of solving mysteries like a Scooby-Doo variety special? Well, I'm afraid that whilst the same campness does exist here, you will also be battling horrors and monstrosities. Well, mostly monstrosities as you make your way across the world, because nothing is really going to scare you here. When traipsing through hostile territory, you are constantly being watched and will be drawn into battle when that stranger shoots at you from the cover of darkness, the bullet's trajectory shattering reality like a panel of glass. 4 characters from your party will participate in battle, though outside of it, you can use the healing abilities of any member in your group, which I liked. Characters can attack, defend, use an item, cast a spell, or use their unique ability, as well as combo with each other. I enjoyed that Covenant really stepped things up, adding a layer of depth and strategy to every encounter. For example, whilst you cannot control where your characters stand directly, the positioning of your characters and enemies is very important when considering the casting of spells and abilities. Some spells will shoot out in a straight line, others in a line and then explode in a small circle, and yet others may affect a wide radial range. It pays to keep your characters split up to avoid taking damage from being grouped together. However, the only way to participate in a combo is to have the characters grouped. Combos allow characters to attack together, one after the other, irrespective of their position on the turn priority gauge, allowing slower characters to act before an enemy's turn. Combos can also be quite powerful, dealing more damage, and in some instances ending in a combo spell. But be careful, as the enemies can and will also combo you. Like Shadow Hearts, Covenant utilizes the Judgment Ring to determine the number of attacks a character can execute on their turn, or whether their action is a success or a failure. Almost every action is governed by this ring, which appears when an action is selected, and you are required to hit thresholds to execute the attack. Each hit zone for an attack has a hit area with an accompanying strike area. Hitting each hit area successfully ensures the attack, though getting the strike area increases the damage done with each beat. If a character has 3 hit areas, where they hit the first 2 and miss the third, they will only strike the enemy twice on that turn. I like this as it acted almost like a risk and reward system, because the more you strove to get those strike areas, the more likely it would be that you would overshoot and miss the zone entirely. Spells operate a little differently in that they have step areas, a modulate area, and then a strike area. For a spell or ability to be cast, all step areas need to be hit, and then the cursor needs to land within either the modulate area or the strike area. The further into a modulate area the needle is when it stops, the stronger the result of the spell. Whilst all this is well and good, and pretty basic in terms of how a JRPG plays out, the other thing to watch out for is a character's sanity points. Each character has a pool of SP based on their exposure to abject horrors and the macabre. For example, Karen's SP pool is quite low compared to Yuri, who has already been through an ordeal in the first game, not to mention his demon transformation ability. Each character loses 1 SP for every time their turn comes up on the turn priority gauge. Should a character's SP reach 0, they will become berserk until the end of battle, or an item is used to heal them. A character under this status will act on their own, attacking allies, the enemies, wasting precious items, and sometimes even performing strange actions that they normally wouldn't, such as Blanca urinating on an ally or enemy. I enjoyed that the SP feature was carried over from Shadow Hearts, and it is very emblematic of the Lovecraftian genre. It's generally best not to allow someone to fall into a berserk state, and this is not the only ailment to look out for. Characters can also suffer from either status or ring abnormalities, which inhibit their ability to perform in battle. While status abnormalities are your standard affair such as poison, paralyze, and petrify, ring abnormalities affect the judgment ring of a character, making it spin backwards, randomly speed up, shrink, or disappear entirely. This extra layer of strategy was nice to see, though it was pretty easy to manage, unless you were competing in the Solomon trials, which forces some of these up on your characters, and a condition of clearing the trial is that you cannot remove the ailment, which often presented a challenge. Thankfully, the rest of the game is more forgiving, providing you with various weapons, equipment, accessories, and items to make your experience travelling across the world a little more bearable. Whilst the previous game had each weapon able to be upgraded to increase its potency, Covenant does away with this mechanic, leaving weapons and armour pretty much as a what you see is what you get kind of deal. The variety comes in their accessories, of which each character can equip 3. In addition to this, all characters other than those with demon transformation skills can equip crests from the Key of Solomon that dictates what spells they can use. Do you want to make your character more of an attack specialist, a healer, or a buffer and debuffer? The choice is yours. The final way in which you can customize your characters is through their individual judgment rings. Based on encounters with the spirit of the judgment ring, and how many times you can find it, you'll be given an item that allows you to increase the number of attacks a character can have with each turn. Additionally, you can add a status ailment or status effect to a character's attack, as well as set what type of ring you want them to use. There's a standard affair which you're probably already using, as well as a couple of others that make the game more difficult or easier, though I just stuck with the standard ring as I'm too old and tired to deal with any of the other bullshit things. The other thing I wanted to note about items was the flavor text that each of them has. This is something that is carried over from the previous titles, and is more coherent this time around. I found the text interesting and relevant to the world and its diegesis, rather than weird obscure blurbs that were all like, a tool of the magic army that appears in the myth of the 20-day war. Like, what army and what war? Anyway, keen observers will see a reference to Pennyblood amongst the items, which if you have been following recent trends, or maybe within the last 3 or 5 years, you'll know it's a game seeking publisher support after a successful Kickstarter by Matsuzo Machida, the same person who developed the Shadow Hearts series. Overall, the flavor text drew me into the world, rather than giving me "huh" moments, which was a big improvement. Characters also have their own means to get stronger. Besides gaining experience in battle to level up, everyone has a quest associated with them that will grant them more abilities the further into the quest chain that you get. For example, Geppetto's is related to getting new dresses for Cornelia, which involves exchanging raunchy stud cards to one of the Majimel brothers for a splash of inspiration. Just make sure you don't get caught in it. Blanca, on the other paw, participates in the Wolf Bout, a one-on-one, for the most part, wolf battle, where winning earns a paw print on a stamp card, and levels up his abilities. Compared to the previous game, which granted new abilities by leveling up the different characters, this system added a bit of variety and depth, and was refreshing. It also allowed characters to be given a bit more screen time, and I loved this aspect, as you are able to spend more time getting to know them and learning about them individually. Yuri and Kurando, on the other hand, accumulate malice after battle, which can be spent to level up their fusions. Where Yuri has many different fusions to draw on and level up, as he unlocks them, Kurando sadly only has 2 and felt a little undercooked. Kurando's fusions are based on Japanese mythology, and I would have liked to have seen a few more, as opposed to one sun goddess and a half-naked demon boy, though I guess if that's what floats Anastasia's boat, who am I to complain? Whilst most of the narrative of the game is light-hearted, it does have a deep underlying meaning. Covenant is, at its heart, Yuri's journey through grief. The 5 stages, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, aren't spelled out in the script, but they're written into his actions, choices, and relationships. Covenant makes the bad ending of Shadow Hearts canon, meaning that Alice's death haunts him, and the holy mistletoe curse becomes a cruel metaphor for his grief, eating away at his body, mind, and memories, threatening to even erase Alice's existence from within him. What's more terrifying than death? Forgetting the person whom you loved most. Across the story, we watch Yuri move from numb denial in Domremy, to lashing out in anger, to bargaining with fate for a second chance, sinking into despair, and finally finding peace with his choice at what happiness means to him. That's what makes Covenant more than just a quirky JRPG. It's a surprising intimate meditation on loss, wrapped in absurdity, history, and a teaspoon of camp. Graphically, Covenant shifts away from the pre-rendered 3D backdrops of its predecessor, taking on a mantle of fully realised 3D environments. Whilst I personally miss the haunting, painterly quality of the old pre-rendered style, the fixed camera angles here help preserve the same atmosphere, creating a sense of cinematic framing. Character models are expressive, with flourishes such as Wakwim's flamboyant wrestling poses or Anastasia's playful animations. These bring out their personality in a way that the previous game could never have achieved. The spell effects also stand out, dazzling in colour and scale, though the environments themselves sometimes veer into plain or muddy textures, which isn't to be helped, considering that most of the dungeon locations are set inside mines, caves, dank places, and other dark spaces. It's a trade-off, with less raw atmosphere than the first game, but more dynamism and character in the moment-to-moment scenes. Covenant's soundtrack is a fascinating blend of haunting melodies and eccentricity. Yoshitaka Hirota and his team fuse gothic choirs, industrial beats, and playful folk themes to mirror the game's shifting tone, from tragedy to absurdity. My favourite track is called Ladder to Heaven, despite that it does not appear in the official soundtrack. I love how it opens with frenetic percussion, backed by an ominous synthetic wail, before the beat drops and you're ready to party on the dance floor like it's 2004, and then the wail comes back in, moving to the front in a language unknown, whilst tribal drums are beat in the background. It seems like it would be a mess, but it just collectively makes sense, and only plays in important boss battles within the story, such as with Amon or at the top of the Winter Palace in Petrograd. It always set my pulse racing, especially when, in the Winter Palace battle, I stupidly decided to have my least strongest characters all collectively together in that battle, and oh man, am I so glad for Lucia's aromatherapy skills, because I had not equipped anything that would protect against instant death. Some close seconds are Glint of Light and An Old Smudged Map, which are the European boss battle theme, and the Europe map overworld theme, respectively. I just generally liked the OST and give it a listen now and then outside of playing the game. The sound effects deserve just as much credit. The weighty punch of Yuri's knuckles when they meet flesh, the guttural cries of monsters, the wolves howling in the forests around Domremy. All of these sell the world and make the battles hit harder. Even the Judgment Ring itself has a satisfying click to it when you nail each of those strike areas, adding to the tension and making every turn feel tactile and deliberate. Much like the music, the sound design balances atmosphere with absurdity, giving weight to Yuri's grief one moment, and a cheeky wink to the player the next. Finally, the voice acting, whilst rare amidst majority text-heavy scenes, fits the scope of the characters that it's been applied to. My only complaint is that Lucia's voice actress is a little too cutesy and dopey, and whilst this would have been the direction of the producers, I also didn't like that Karen often referred to herself as being a woman at the end of battle, as though it's a bad thing. Don't underestimate you because you're a woman. Honey, you're more than the orchestration of your breasts and vagina. Own your femininity. Shadow Heart's Covenant is a contradiction caught in the sticky candy wrapper of a JRPG. Tragic and hilarious, grotesque and campy, deeply human yet utterly absurd. On one hand, it's about a man's journey with his grief, moving through the pain toward acceptance and learning how to live again. On the other, it's about the machinations of war, set against the backdrop of a flamboyant wrestling vampire, and a strange woman so very into BDSM that you have to wonder how much sake the dev team had when they were writing the scenario. It's precisely this collision that makes Covenant unforgettable though. The combat system refines the Judgment Ring into something strategic and rewarding. The world blends real history with playful fiction, and the characters, even when they don't quite mesh, leave lasting impressions. Is it perfect? No. But it is one of the most daring, idiosyncratic JRPGs of its generation, an experience that sticks with you long after the credits roll. For me, that's the mark of a game worth remembering, curse and all. And if you happen to get to the top of the Man Festival, maybe, just maybe, you'll learn a little bit about what true love is.
Excuse me?
Yes, dear?
I want to know too.
Well, very well then, I will tell you. Those who fail in the Man Festival must receive as a punishment the winner's full manhood.
Manhood?
Oh, you don't mean... gross.
Exactly. That is correct.
So, great question. If you win... Oh. And if I win?
By the way, Shadow Heart's Covenant is a game that many enjoyed when it first came out, but still seems to have a niche following. Have you played this game? Let me know what you think of it in the comments. This has been Venoir with a review of Shadow Heart's Covenant for the Sony PlayStation 2. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more great JRPG content. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch my videos. I appreciate you. Take care of yourselves, and bye bye for now.